2020 is a year we'd all rather forget, I'm sure. You don't need me to tell you what a challenging year it was, and even now, our lives are still very much curtailed because of the COVID-19 pandemic. We've had to get used to things we probably had never thought about before. Social distancing, wearing face coverings in public places, not being able to meet with friends and family, not being able to go to concerts, theatre or the cinema, not being able to go far, if anywhere, on holiday, queuing to get into a supermarket, following one-way systems inside, even being restricted in how many toilet rolls we can buy. As well as personal challenges, COVID-19 brought significant challenges for the church too. From mid-March, the building had to close for worship. Everything seemed to be cancelled. Easter services, one of the highlights of the church year, couldn't take place, nor could we mark the Leith Festival together, or harvest. Thankfully, we were able to worship together at Christmas. One of the very difficult things this year has been being unable to show support for those grieving, with numbers at funerals restricted. 12 of our members died this year, and Rob conducted 17 funerals. Our thoughts and prayers have been with all those families. There should have been 2 weddings, but they too had to be cancelled. All the groups who meet in the halls had to stop. All our fundraising and social events were cancelled. The General Assembly was cancelled, I think, for the first time ever, although a shorter version did take place online in October. It certainly wasn't the year that Martin Fair envisaged for his role as moderator, I'm sure. But instead of talking about all the negative things, I'd like to concentrate on the positive things which happened in Leith St Andrews in 2020. Just before we closed, there was a happy and busy service as we celebrated the baptism of Riva. The very next week we had instructions to close, and that's when we had to learn new ways of being church. Services went online, whether that was pre-recorded reflections as Rob did at the start of lockdown, or live streaming the services on Facebook as we began doing in November, or more recently joining together on Zoom to worship on Sunday mornings. It's not quite the same as being in church, of course, but we could see each other's faces, we could sing along and have a chat afterwards. We're aware that many people don't have internet access, but there is now the option of phoning in to listen to the service, or just watching the services which have been so popular on the BBC. A lot of work was put into getting the church ready to reopen, with a small group of us roping off every other pew, measuring out safe spaces where people could sit, removing the pew cushions, storing all the hymn books, and marking out one-way systems on the floor. Behind the scenes, a huge amount of risk assessment paperwork had to be submitted to Presbytery to show the measures we had put in place to minimise the risk of passing on the virus. I'm very grateful to the people who volunteered as stewards, enabling us to open first of all for individual prayer from the beginning of August, and then for worship from the end of September. As well as welcoming you and seeing you safely to your seat or out the building afterwards, the stewards stay behind to clean all the surfaces, making sure the building is as safe as we can possibly make it. My thanks too to those of you who came along to the services and adapted to these new rules and regulations. And thanks must also go to Rob and Ian for continuing to make worship as meaningful as possible in difficult circumstances, especially since we still haven't been allowed to sing together. I think that's the thing probably most of us miss most of all. Although the vast majority of groups who usually meet in the church had to stop and have not yet been allowed to return, our food bank has continued to operate twice weekly with its group of volunteers ensuring that those in need can access food. We also still have 2 teams who go out with the Bethany Caravan monthly, providing food and warm clothing to the homeless. Thanks are due to all these volunteers. The only other group able to meet in the building is our playgroup. Despite its name, it's actually a nursery registered with the council, and so operates under the same guidance as other education providers. Thinking of the building itself, no major work has been carried out to our church or halls this year due to the difficulties caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. We have, however, continued to ensure that the buildings are in a good condition, and we've kept up regular maintenance by clearing gutters, checking over roofs and electrical and gas servicing. While the buildings were closed, inspections were regularly carried out and fire alarms, etc. were tested to make sure the buildings were safe and secure. During the summer holidays, the Loch End Road Hall Garden was surfaced to create a safe play area for the children attending the playgroup in the halls. The playgroup contributed towards the cost of this work. Plans for repairs to the external fabric of the church are being developed by the Property Committee, which will be undertaken once the current COVID-19 restrictions are eased. And the floor in the Easter Road Hall will be sanded and resealed within the next couple of weeks. We have still been able to let members of the congregation know we are thinking of them in sad or happy times by having flowers delivered, initially by a delivery company and then by our regular volunteers. Although for much of the year we posted or emailed the church magazine, in December elders delivered these along with shortbread gifts to the elderly, ill or housebound in the congregation. More volunteers, so more thank yous. We couldn't do without our annual Coffee and Carols sing-along, so that had to go online too. This time thanks go to Stuart Lithgow, who found videos of all our favourites for us to sing along to and then put them together into films. It was a very enjoyable evening. There have been lots of thank yous in this report, and I think there is lots to be thankful for, even in the midst of a pandemic. Sometimes we need to look hard to find those things, it's true, but they are there. As we're looking forward to slowly coming out of the crisis and coming together again as a church family, we should, in the words of two hymns, look forward in faith and give thanks with a grateful heart.